I have in my hand is a stone axe, not unlike those you would find in many other parts of the world. But this one has particular significance because it's been dug up from the swamps where those early settlers first farmed here 10,000 years ago. Papua New Guineans began cultivating crops in an isolated valley, 1,500 meters above sea level in the Western Highlands, a long way from the rest of the world. What were the conditions that led to this huge cultural change, and what were the challenges that faced our ancestors all those years ago? To change from hunters and gatherers to sedentary farmers. Farming in PNG started here, 10,000 years ago. All of the generations that followed survived on the same land and established farming practices which are still being used today. Here I am trying to balance between two raised beds. These beds were the system that these ancient farmers used to use. They dug deep trenches to drain the waters of the swamps of the Wagi and planted their crops on top of these raised beds. The collected knowledge of all these people and the fact that they had to be at one with the land and dominate their surroundings to survive has led to modern farmers. What we have here is a typical swamp in the Wagi Valley. But what I really want to show you, and what's particularly important, is this wild taro that is growing here. Taro is endemic to this part of Papua New Guinea and is very important. It's probably the first crop that these ancestors cultivated and still retains a cultural and traditional significance in many parts of Papua New Guinea. There are different issues today that face these people, and they will respond and learn to adapt just as their ancestors did. Agriculture is the main activity for the majority of the people that live there, and their major source of cash income. Today, we will be looking at families who have developed agriculture. Afternoon now. What you see here is a typical garden built on raised beds. But what I'd particularly like you to have a look at is the drainage system that's here. This is in the middle of the wet season in the Western Highlands, and there is a large amount of rainfall. If they didn't have this drainage system, the soils would become waterlogged and the plants wouldn't grow properly. If you go to other parts of the highlands, they have different systems of coping with the same problem. Here we have strawberries. This little fella's already flowering. And here we have round onions. Onions in Papua New Guinea, we require about 4,000 tonnes a year. We're a long way short. We cannot supply all the onions that are required by the market. But given that we're trying to promote them right throughout the highlands and in a few other parts of Papua New Guinea, you might be able to see onions in your supermarket shortly. From those early settlers who used slash and burn practices, we have moved on to become marginalists, meaning people who plant for themselves and their families and produce extra to generate that much needed cash in rural areas, to pay for the basic necessities such as school fees and medicines for their children. Here in my hand I have some strawberries that these kids have given to me. These were introduced into Papua New Guinea, and that just goes to show, with the climatic conditions up in the highlands here and the wonderful soils and environment that we have up here, that anything flourishes. Tropical crops, indigenous crops, and even many of the introduced things. The strawberry has become very popular, particularly at higher altitudes, and is regularly marketed through Hagen Market and Goroka Market. Don't you want to taste one? Just like the strawberries back home. Now you plus how much grown strawberry?
Yeah.
Blowing them.
I'm sa feed me blalo. Good like I was
Okay. Now you plus market them all go away. Long Hagen Market, that's all. So inside Long Hagen Market, only sa buy them all simonem. How much money you sa kisim long him?
Plate, lik plate paiskina lo one plate na now baget. Me place agar bolongan. Me place sim 100 kina lo one baget. 100 kina 70, 60, 50 or so me place like this.
This lig 30 kina.
30 kina 25 me place like
No. Two you plus are selling one no?
Yeah,
One and or same this last strawberry you hold him. How much lot this la? 20 toya for one. Okay, what's also interesting is that these people are taking their strawberries to Hagen Market, but that is not where they're finishing up. They're being purchased by companies or by larger buyers and taken to the mining camps in the highlands, such as Pagera, the LNG, and other parts of the highlands. So there's already quite an established market network for these strawberries from here. Can I get one more? Thank you. Soil was one of the first things I've noticed upon arriving in Papua New Guinea 40 years ago. So different from where I come from, especially in the highlands region with its unique red tones, but also ideal for agricultural activities. So this is the Hagen baby banana? Is that the one here? Its real beauty, though, lies deep in the layers below the ground, where all kinds of minerals are found, the fruit of a young geological past. Good quality soils are a fundamental for any agriculture anywhere in the world. Here in Papua New Guinea, we have some wonderful examples. Here is a typical soil from this part of Western Highlands that shows the topsoil where vegetation is broken down and where microbes, earthworms, and other things actively work to break down that organic matter. And given the higher rainfall here, many of those nutrients are leached down through the soil. It's also very good because it's very sandy and friable soil. Today, as we drive along some of the highest passes in Papua New Guinea, well over 2,000 meters above sea level. We will see how potatoes thrive under these climatic conditions, as the temperatures here can often drop below zero, and it's something that not many people would expect to encounter in this part of the world. Here we see some of the potatoes that are being grown at Tambor. These have been given to the local village people here, and they've raised these seeds and now producing and selling potatoes. This is the variety Sequoia. It's the most popular variety in the highlands. Potatoes are an introduced vegetable. Their origins are up in the Andes in South America several hundred years ago, and from there they've spread right through the highlands. But at this altitude it's particularly important for the people here because we're in an area that's too high for coffee to grow and some of the other commercial crops. So these people and the village people here, the farmers, have to exist by growing vegetable crops that are suited to this environment. Traditionally, sweet potatoes, or cow as they're called over here, was the staple crop in the highlands. But the introduced potatoes yield much faster at these altitudes, and the local communities have adopted it as a safeguard in times of food shortages. That is why we will be visiting a research station at Tambor, which provides planting material to the farmers, as well as leading the industry in scientific research.
Okay, Steve, here we have the media ready.
Okay,
It's been watered, ready for transplanting. So here we have the plantlets ready. We use the forceps. I'll really show you how we do the transplanting. Remember, the plantlet inside there is delicate.
Okay.
It's very fragile, so you need to handle it with care.
These delicate plantlets actually come from the Nari-run tissue culture laboratory at Ayura, where samples from Peru grow in a sterile environment, free of pest and diseases, to be further multiplied here at Tambor, and this is what I'm about to do.
That's the way we do it, so I will give it to you and I would like you to do it yourself.
You sure I can do this?
Try it.
Okay.
Gently,
Not too deep,
not too deep,
shallow.
not too shallow. That's the way.
That little thing there is going to grow into a big potato.
That's right. It's planted and it grows up to 3 months. After the third month, you harvest them. The first generation, generation 0.
So this is the mature plant that's grown from those little things that we transplanted in the other greenhouses.
Yes, of course.
So we've got lots of green stuff in the greenhouse here. Can we actually see some of the mini potatoes? Or
Of
mini
course.
tubers, as you call them?
Why not? Oh, we are lucky, we're lucky. We have a tuber here.
So they've already formed a little potato.
That's right, that's right.
And this is what you give from here that goes out to the certified seed growers to produce more potatoes so that you've got a basis for an industry. Is that
That's
correct?
right. This, the first tuber.
What we call Generation 0 is basically the original potatoes that grow in a controlled environment, free of diseases, which can then be multiplied to assure a consistent production for the ever-growing domestic market. So this is Generation 0, Gabby, is that correct?
Yes, of course.
And from here, it takes another 4 years
That's right.
to go through certified seed growers, through outgrowers, to produce the table potatoes that the farmer in the village will get to grow his own potatoes.
You're
Is that-
right. It takes exactly 4 years before it reaches.
It's a long time. This process of multiplication, which may sound like a long period of time, but it has allowed PNG to become independent in potato production, instead of having to rely on imported seeds, traditionally from Australia and New Zealand, contributing therefore to national food security. Good agricultural practices also means using all of the available technologies to fight pests and diseases and to increase your yields. Because, let's face it, all farmers experience some of these problems sooner or later in their lives. In my own experience, I found the farmers in Western Highlands to be exceptionally receptive to modern innovations. Once you introduce a concept, As long as it delivers returns, I can assure you it will stay there for a very long time. We're standing in a farmer's field here at a little village called Tomba, which is halfway between Tamble and Mount Hagen. And we're here with a potato farmer who's got a wonderful crop of potatoes here. This guy is a little bit smarter than the average farmer because he's got two different varieties here. One that he sourced from Tamble, which is the sequoia, which is a little bit vulnerable to this blight disease, and the other, which is one of the ones that have been brought in from Peru because of this disease. By having these two varieties, this resistant one doesn't need to be sprayed. This potatoes here, this is the ones you don't need to spray. You please not spray them all.
No, me bless us spray, but some rain come time, me bless us.
So time below big blow rain. So when it's raining hard, they do need to spray these ones, even though they have a degree of tolerance to the pathogen. But this one, this la you spray.
You will spray 1 week, 2 days.
Every 9 days, he's spraying his potato crop for this particular fungal problem. These stay in the ground till they're about 13 weeks old. And then you will see some of the tops will start to die out. That's an indication that they're nearing maturity and the potato tubers have already been formed under the ground. And it's only a couple of weeks after that that you harvest them. Okay, now we're at the final stage. We're actually preparing to harvest these potatoes. These are potatoes of that variety that has tolerance to the late blight. And these were the ones that we saw growing as plantlets all the way through the system that Tamble operate at their research station. Those seeds have come to this farmer all the way through, so he's now harvesting a potato crop. This is about 14 weeks from planting the original tubers. And as you can see, the tops have died off, which is an indication that they've reached maturity. These are very good eating potato. They're yellow in color inside, as opposed to the sequoia, which is white. Now this little potato by plago salim. Okay. So they're selling some up in Warbag, but they're mainly selling them to the fast food joints in Mount Hagen. Upon arriving in Papua New Guinea in the late 1970s, I quickly realized about the importance of the coffee industry, as it provides an income to millions of people. Small wonder, therefore, that it is often called the green gold of the highlands, even though Papua New Guinea could grow much more coffee with a better road system, as both farmers and exporters struggle to get the beans to the market. Yeah, so where are we going to plant these? But some people are trying to make the difference. And today I'm meeting with Pius Kiap, who provides technical assistance to farmers who are willing to improve their coffee brocks through better management, which, as always, starts with knowing how to plant a tree. And this is what I will be learning today. Pius, let's get to work. You're going to show me how you're going to plant that seedling. Okay.
So, mi kati mosem, blow this la big bla roots go down the ground, and me go na me bent finish.
Okay, so the roots are bent.
And me bent, and me no blow grow.
So you cut them off.
And me no blow, so me cut him off.
All right.
All right. Now me broke him.
Is that hole big enough, or do I need to dig it further?
You can rouse him really, rouse him obviously.
Okay. When push comes to shove, goes the old saying, you can see your own limits. Yes. And it seems that I have reached mine pretty quickly, as I've run out of breath as soon as I started digging. What he's saying to us is that these roots have already pretty much filled up the plastic that they were raised in. And this soil is actually obstructing these roots being able to grow further. And the plastic has limited the growth of the taproot, which is the most important root. That's the root that goes straight down into the ground.
Yes.
So it's important that that's free to grow and push its way into the earth.
Right.
So we're breaking up the soil to make it nice and loose.
Yes.
So there's lots of air spaces in the soil that the roots can go out, water can get in there, and these roots here can spread out very quickly. The quicker the roots get established, the healthier the plant will be.
There's a top root.
So you see, the soil in
here.
here is nice and loose.
Now we will put him coffee go down, roots stop. Okay. Now we will put him more ground go. Soil goes back here. Okay.
So these roots here, they need to be feeding into the topsoil, which is where the active microbial activity is. There's earthworms in there, and that's where the rich organic matter that's come off these trees before is available immediately to the plant. So he's using some of the soil from the nursery bag, which is topsoil, to encourage those roots to develop as quickly as possible. Well, Pius, that's a hard work. If you had to plant a couple of hundred of them, I'm short of breath already.
And people are supposed to be planting 100 them are meat bagra peninsula on Abidu.
Finally, after a long day on the coffee block, doing the planting, doing the pruning, I'm going to get that cup of coffee that I so richly deserve. Unfortunately, it's not their coffee. They had to go down the road to buy it in the trade store because the coffee season's finished. But I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it anyway. Pius. What we have seen today is only the initial part of coffee production, where local communities, like the one led by Pius, provide coffee beans to larger corporations down the Highlands Highway and to the town of Goroka, where roasters will process the coffee further, exporters will package it for the international markets, and we'll be there to see just how this all happens.
Stay tuned for the next episode of Farming PNG in Goroka on Thursday the 20th of April at 7 p.m. on this network.